So I'm calling this lecture Dare to Share, and I'm going to explain why the name at the end. So to start with, I would like to start with the definition. What is sharing? And for that definition, instead of going to any particular dictionary, I did some Google research, and one specific definition caught my attention. That one is the one from Wikipedia. And I know some people say, but bear with me and you understand why the definition caught my attention. It says, sharing is the joint use of a resource or space. It is also the process of dividing and distributing. In its narrow sense, it refers to joint or alternating use of inherently finite goods such as common pasture or a shared residence. Still more loosely, sharing can actually mean giving something as an outright gift. For example, to share one's food really means to give someone a portion of it. Sharing is a basic component of human interaction, and it's responsible for strengthening social ties and ensuring a person's well-being. Apart from obvious instances which we can observe in human activity, we can also find many examples of this happening in nature. When an organism takes in nutrition or oxygen, for instance, its internal organs are designed to divide and distribute the energy taken in to supply parts of its body that needed it. Flowers divide and distribute their seeds. In a broader sense, it can also include free granting of use right of goods, like information, for instance. Nowadays, it's very common that we hear phrases like sharing the roads, which means that we have to allow for bicycles and pedestrians and be mindful of them. Share the knowledge at schools, religious institutions, and in teams. Sharing economy, ride sharing, file sharing, social sharing. Share the life with your partner, with someone else. Sharing information, sharing values, and so on and so forth. So it's a phrase or an expression that we have been hearing a lot those days. In our meetings every Monday here, at the closing, we invite everyone to send vibrations or irradiate our best energy and sentiments towards others. We all, at this moment, are invited to share. How does it feel when we are sharing? Do we share enough? Not only here, but in our lives. That's the reflection that I would like to bring to all of us tonight. And to start it, I went and did some research within the Spiritist doctrine to find examples of sharing. Apart of the obvious ones that we know, what else could we find within the doctrine? So from the Spiritist Review, the Journal of Psychological Studies, Allan Kardec points out the importance of the work that he has done. And he says, those letters that he received from many mediums about Spiritist communications from all over the place, that's what he's talking about, and the large number of people that give us the honor of coming to us to talk about these serious issues convince us more and more about the progress of the true Spiritism. And by true Spiritism, we mean the one understood in all its moral consequences. Not eluded by actual reach of our work, the simple thought of having contributed by sowing a few grains onto a scale is a kind of satisfaction to us, because those seeds would have served as a wake-up call to people's thoughts. So why was Kardec so satisfied by sharing those knowledges that he received? Spiritism has advanced, in particular since the time when people began to understand its reach in its most subtle essence, for it touches the most sensitive string of the human being, happiness, even still in this world. That is cause of its propagation. The secret of the strength which make it triumph. So Kardec was satisfied because he was achieving or trying to achieve a richer or a bigger goal with the sharing of the information that he got. Another example of sharing, it's still from the Spiritist review, and it's from a spirit called Lacordaire. And he says the following, and it's about material support or material sharing. When it is considered that everything comes from God and returns to God, it's impossible not to perceive in the majority of divine creations the bond that unites them and subject them to a work of common progress, as well as a work of private progress. Nor it can be ignored that the resulting solidarity law does not oblige us to offer free sacrifices of all sorts to each other. Furthermore, it should be noted that God showed us in everything a first application of the primordial principles that He established. And this is all saying about solidarity and the importance of that. Thus, through solidarity, this principle is expressed in the sensitivity that we have been endowed with, a sensitivity that leads us to share in the hardship of others, to have pity, and to relieve them. He goes on discussing moral support and material support. You see, I give you food for thought. I establish a hierarchy according to the instincts of your heart. So he's talking here about the ones that are closest to us, like family and other people. In the meantime, avoid favoring some to the exclusion of others. It is by the equitable sharing of your benefits that you will show your wisdom. It is also by the equitable sharing that you will fulfill the law of God in relation to your brothers, which is the law of solidarity. Lemonnier, which is another spirit, says, justice is life. Charity is also life, but a more beautiful and sweeter life. Yes, charity is as beautiful and sweet. It is the life of the saints. It is the key to heaven. This is Lacordaire talking about solidarity, which is also talking about sharing. Then, this, in the material sense, what he's talking about, why do we do those things? When it's from our hearts, it is to help others to get better. If they are in trouble, to step up, to get on their feet again, right? So now, from Heaven and Hell, there's a preface written by Kardec on the first edition of the book. And that preface says something very interesting about the second part of the book. Now, if you remember, the Heaven and Hell, it's divided in two, right? First is a theoretical knowledge about the sins, the penitence, and heaven. And then there's a second part of the book that is when the spirits share their stories with Allan Kardec. That's what this portion is talking about. The second part contains numerous examples supporting the theory, or rather, which served to establish the theory. They owe their authority to the diversity of times and places in which they were obtained. And then he goes on talking about how he collects all the letters from different mediums, different experiences, and from different spirits. Then he says, to avoid tedious repetition, we need to make a choice among the most instructive. So from all the messages, thousands that he had, he chose some to document in the book. Each of these examples is a study in which all words have their reach for everyone who meditates them carefully, since from each point a light shines on the situation of the soul after death and the passage, and so obscure and so feared from corporeal life to spiritual life. So, why is he pointing out here? That those instructions, the sharing of their personal realities, enlighten us. It's another example of sharing that we can get from the book. And then, from more specifically now from the Spirits book, there's a question on pure spirits. And that's a very interesting form of sharing. They are God's messengers and ministers, the executors of God's will, in maintaining universal harmony. They exercise independent control over all inferior spirits, aid them to accomplish their purification, and assign each of them a mission for their progress. They genuinely strive to assist human beings in their time of need by motivating them to the love of good, or making amends for the faults that keep them from supreme happiness. They are sometimes called angels, archangels, or seraphim. This is the most beautiful form of sharing of all, because they didn't need to do anything. They are pure spirits and do not stop sharing with us. And this is even more beautiful when you think that they are doing this to help us to live in communion with the natural laws. They are trying to guide us. And this is all Spiritism. But then, what other philosophies have to say about this? So I went to do a quick research on Kabbalah. And one of Kabbalah's core values, and this is according to Michael Berg from the Kabbalah Center in the United States. One of Kabbalah's core values is to selflessly share with others. Kabbalists teach that the purpose of life is to transform our desire to receive to the desire to share. When we share because we feel it's our duty, the act does not reveal the greatest potential of light. In fact, feeling obliged takes some light out of the act of sharing. Our aim should be to share without considering whether we should share or not. Michael Berg calls this sharing as a servant. It is an act that registers a higher spiritual level. When we no longer feel that we have a choice about whether to give or not to give, says Michael, our consciousness becomes that of a servant, not in the sense of lowering ourselves, but in the sense of elevating ourselves spiritually. It goes beyond simply helping another person. Sharing as a servant means jumping at the opportunity to share. It can even mean putting oneself, someone else's needs before your own. And then I researched a little of Buddhism as well. And these extracts that I have here, they are from Soka Gakkai, which is a Japanese Buddhist organization. They say, the Bodhisattva practice is the essence of nurturing Buddhism, which teaches that happiness at the exclusion of others is not genuine happiness. To be sure, the original purpose of Buddhism is to help those who are suffering and to enable as many people as possible to become happy. Engaging in both practice for self and for others is the key to defeating the negativity in our own lives, as well as those with whom we share the practice. Which practice he's talking about? The sharing. It is the direct means for transforming your karma and infinitely expanding our state of life. How beautiful is this? We can see examples in different philosophies and highlight the same understanding, which is we should look at all things from the perspective of abundance, not scarcity. We have lots to share. But why then, sometimes we find ourselves double thinking an opportunity to serve others? Do we feel obliged to help and do so out of this obligation? Are we afraid of being misinterpreted? Do we feel that sharing too much will place us in a position of vulnerability? Are we afraid of other people being judgmental towards ourselves or our actions? Are we too busy to find the time to help others? Do we feel that we are in the most need? We are the ones in the most need, so other people would be helping us. Do we feel that if we share too much of our knowledge or experience, we will be empowering people to overthrow us? Have we felt sad for doing good and not being recognized by doing so? Have others behaved ungratefully after an act of kindness in our part? Do we feel tired of giving, like trying to dry ice? I reckon that we all have faced some of these questions on the course of our lives. Those questions arise when we are focusing on what give our time, energy, or resources. Why, if I don't want to? Many times it's because we feel obliged to do so. We become victims of sharing. We do it from the perspective of scarcity, to fulfill a duty or obligation, or even to look good in front of other people. The aim of the incarnated spirit is to evolve, to become perfect and happy. In order to achieve the objective, we have to transform our imperfections in virtues and live by them and by higher value moral principles. In other words, we need to live in consonance or in communion with the natural laws. Let us check with the spirits what they think about sharing, about developing the virtue of sharing spontaneously. Which is the most This is question 893 from the Spirit's book. Which is the most admirable of all virtues? All virtues are admirable, as they are all signs of progress on the moral path. Every act of voluntary resistance to the seductive influence of temptations for wrongdoing is a sign of victory or virtue. But the sublimity of virtue entails the sacrifice of self-interest for the good of others, without having any ulterior motives. The most admirable of all virtues is that which is based on charity and is the most fair-minded. So this is even deeper, because this means that by giving, we should be doing it without any levels of interest. And from the Spirit's book too, we know, or from our studies here, we know that we are capable of overcoming our passions. We all. What is that we lack? Will, most of the times. Spiritism teaches us that we are all destined to perfection, and that our best model and guide is Jesus. So, how did Jesus approach sharing? That's a very good point, yes. So he gave generously. He was never, even at the cross, he blessed his executioners. He was never tired enough not to heal or instruct his disciples. Nevertheless, he understood human nature well enough to give according to the underlying ultimate needs of the people, which with the clear objective of contributing to their evolution. He mastered it. Okay, you may be thinking, easier said than done. We are not Jesus just yet. Yes, you were very right on that. So, that's a great deal to share at that level. There's a great deal of courage that's needed. Because to share in that level, we have to transform ourselves. And to transform ourselves is a great effort that demands courage. This is why the invitation is to dare to share. We have to be brave enough to be willing to get to that level. So, what can we do? Just be all looking at me saying, true, yeah. What about starting with the very small things? Small acts of kindness in our daily activities. Embrace the opportunity as they present themselves in order to make the act of sharing natural. In other words, develop the habit of sharing. Next time my boss asks me to stay late, I will do so gladly because I'm being helpful. Even if I'm tired and my partner asks me for help with the most silly thing at home, I will do so with a smile. When I come to the Spiritist meeting, I will dedicate myself 100% to listening and sharing. When I volunteer, I will place myself in the position of a servant. When the opportunity comes to share my knowledge and experience, I will do so bravely. And if I am misinterpreted or not properly recognized, I will not feel bad or discouraged, as I understand that I did my best and shared all I could with the best of intentions. Our job then is to flip our perspective into one of abundance. I have enough. I can give whatever. There's no scarcity. When we believe that we have more than enough, we don't think twice about sharing our time, resources, or energy with others. When we dare to give naturally, not out of duty or obligation, we are no longer victims of sharing, but true givers. Sharing the light of the Creator every chance we get. This is, in my opinion, what Jesus exemplified during all his life with us, during his incarnation on earth. Now I would like to finish with a quote that I love. It's from Mahatma Gandhi, and it says, "You must be the change you want to see in the world." Thank you very much.